What's up, everybody? Let's check on impeachment. Woo! Isn't this exciting? Not really. But it is something that's happening. It could have some interesting impacts on certain things. It's not necessarily massively impactful in some ways, but it's certainly not a entirely meaningless or empty gesture. Even if it feels pretty close to one. The most important thing about this, of course, is that can Donald Trump run for president again? The answer right now is yes, but if he's impeached, he would not be able to. And that's probably the most pressing thing, because we know he's probably going to run again in 2024 if he's allowed to. So this does have a bearing upon that. It has some bearings upon some other things as well, in terms of like the way he'll be treated as a former president. I just want to say we should impeach all living presidents. They get tons of benefits for being a president. They get these benefits forever. They get health care. Well, I don't know for sure if they get health care, but they get a stipend. They get security agents, and they get like a lot of other features. I think they get health care. And we should just impeach every living lawmaker at this point, because they're all assholes. And why should they continue to get these ongoing benefits from our government when they didn't do anything to help anybody else when they were in office? So, we could say that this impeachment of Trump may be a little bit silly on some levels, but fuck it. Let's impeach everyone and just take them out of getting all of these sweet, cushy government benefits that they don't deserve, because what have they done for anyone? But enough about pondering and theorizing. Let's just look at the matter at hand. So essentially right now, the vote's pretty close. It's kind of likely to pass, although we'll see. McConnell's hinted he might accept an impeachment this time and might like go through with it. Seems a little unlikely, because like, come on, is McConnell really gonna like suddenly bow down to the idea of impeaching a Republican president? Because that's a bad look for the party, even if you're ready to distance yourself from Trump, which a lot of people obviously are ready to distance themselves from Donald Trump. But I don't know that, like, I don't know. We'll see. Let's stop talking about that. We can talk about that more later. We'll come back to watching this hearing in a little bit, and we'll just check on it a few times over the course of the hour and see what's going on, see if anything's going on. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about Airbnb canceling all DC reservations during inauguration week. This is pretty interesting because we've seen a number of corporations kind of like come up with different kinds of responses to this issue, and a lot of them are just purely kind of ceremonial. And there's no real, it's hard to be impressed with corporations like doing the bare minimum ever as a leftist. So it's like, yeah, whatever. This doesn't necessarily feel like a massive step, don't get me wrong, but I think it's interesting because this is more material than like what a lot of other corporations are doing in response to the shitty fascist coup on the government. And so I don't know why I even know better. I took French. Anyway, but so this is interesting, I think, because this is pretty material. Especially because Airbnb has become really popular. Now, obviously, it's probably a little less popular now than it was like a few years ago, but like it's still like it's pretty popular, and a lot of people do make use of it. And during coronavirus, initially Airbnb usage went down, but now it's actually kind of up compared to hotels. And so a lot of people are using Airbnb right now, and just in general, like it is this popular platform for like finding a place to stay. And so for Airbnb to cancel everybody's accommodations for the week of inauguration is like, this could affect a lot of things, and it could definitely affect the ability of these weird insurrectionists. Like, if they can't travel and they can't stay anywhere, then the ideas of a second round of attempted insurrection basically melt away, right? Because, like, what are they going to do? Like, if they can't, like, take a train or a plane, I mean, maybe they'll get really good at ride sharing, but they don't develop those skills naturally. That's more like the other side of the aisle that gives a shit about stuff like that. So are they going to like be able to figure out a way to make it work? I don't know. Let's check back in on impeachment for a second and see what's going on. Still a pretty close vote.
Have you ever seen a debate like this?
Oh no.
I've seen no. The short end of it is I have not seen this. You got to combine it with the other impeachment debate, and this is historic in the sense that you have the first president.
Oh my God, I don't want to listen to Rahm Emanuel talk. What the hell, NBC? I'll find different impeachment coverage. Who wants to listen to Rahm Emanuel talk? Nobody, ever, not for any reason. All right, hold on. I'm just gonna find a stream with no commentary because that's so much better. Okay. Back to good old C-SPAN. It will be interesting just from like a political perspective. I'm not trying to say that any of these people are suddenly good people that we care about, but just from a political perspective, it would be interesting to see which Republicans are voting yay, and if they're in some kind of unsafe district. Again, this isn't about like the morality of the actions, but I would be curious to see like what the district makeup of people voting certain ways is. And I might have to like do a little bit of a deep dive into that. Just because this is like a somewhat important vote, at least symbolically, even if it's not that important. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's like force the vote, right? Like that was a symbolic vote too. So, whatever. This is another potentially semi-meaningful symbolic vote, and it would be interesting to look at who votes in which direction on this.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr.
Bergman, just a vote.
Pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bergman will vote no on final passage HREV 24.
Fine. I don't know why we get to see some votes like this and others just kind of trickle in. C-SPAN's choice of what to cover is
on final passage HREV 24.
Yeah, let me turn this down just a little bit. It's a little loud for me. I'll turn it back up if it actually gets interesting, but if people are just voting, which is all that's happening right now, they're not talking about they're just saying, hey, this is my vote. Yeah. This is a really good yeah, force the vote. I wonder if the force the vote camp would have had the exact same stance had they known what was coming, in terms of feeling like this was the most important thing they could be talking about. And I don't want to turn this into a whole thing. I'm not a big force the vote hater. Everybody knows this. I'm pretty neutral on it. Like, I thought it was okay. I called a few reps. I had some criticisms. I was a force the vote centrist, I guess. Yeah, things have gotten a lot crazier since then. It feels weird to even talk about that now, because it's just like, it just feels like we should be moving on given like the things that are going on. All right, so narrowly the resolution is winning again, but it's been really close the whole time, so
Madam Speaker,
kind of
as the member designated by Ms. Titus of Nevada, pursuant to HRES 8, I inform the House that Ms. Titus will vote yes on HRES 24.
I was not ready for that thick Northeastern accent. Just wasn't prepared mentally. Yeah, I just I wish I could say that this was going to be way more meaningful, but again, I think it is important that we stop Donald Trump from running again, if possible, because that's just going to be such a fucking shit show, especially if Biden and Harris have a very weak presidency, which is what I expect. Like, we're going to have, like, Donald Trump just being able to attack, you know, from the exact perspective of, look, they denied me, blah, blah, blah. It'd be better to just get his ass out of politics at this point. I'm not a big orange man bad person. Anybody who's watched this show more than a little knows this. But it's still, I would rather see this pass than not. I mean, I don't want to make it into a binary situation, but that's literally what a vote is in this country. You know, I have to either like take a stance for or against it to some extent. There's really not much in the middle, and I you know, I kind of hope it passes. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it, really. It's probably time to move on to some other news in a minute, because this is just not going anywhere at the moment, but we'll check in again on it in a minute. This next thing, this isn't exactly news. Oh, hey, it's Rachel.
Hey, everybody.
That's not exactly news either, but...
No, I was actually sitting in the room and I wanted to find, like, a good moment to jump in. I don't think it actually matters if he gets impeached at this point. That's my take. My take is we're way too deep. Like, it's too late.
I think it matters from the perspective of, as I said before, like, just the ongoing benefits and stuff. Like, you do get a certain kind of, like, innate sort of respect that the government helps enforce as a former president, and to lose that government enforcement of that innate respect, it's not entirely meaningless. Is it a low meaning situation? Arguably.
If we're talking about in terms of outcomes, like, I think we're about equally as likely to end up with him as a dictator in a couple of years anyway. Like, I'm not sure it matters at this point. We have this base that has been so just, like, mobilized for this end, you know? And no matter what happens from here, they don't believe the government is acting legitimately.
I do agree with you, but I think that he is less. If I had to make this argument, this feels kind of lib, so it sucks to say on some levels. But if I have to make this argument, I would say I think if we're worried about the outcome that Donald Trump potentially becomes like the dictator of the United States at some point, I do think it's less likely that that happens if he's impeached. Because again, deplatforming works and it matters. And we can prove this by looking at like some of the right-wing figures that have been heavily deplatformed. People always say, oh, it won't matter. They'll still get their shit out there. And then actually they don't. And it does matter. And so like whether it's like Milo Yiannopoulos or like any of the other like goons of the right wing who have been like heavily deplatformed in the last few years, you will just consistently find that actually it does matter. And in fact, it affects the way they think, because Milo has now realized that the right-wing people that he sold himself to did not care about him. And like, I'm not trying to, like, I don't give a shit about his redemption arc or whatever, but like, it is funny, just objectively funny to see him posting like left-leaning stuff on like the few like platforms that will still let him have an account, because he's been so thoroughly screwed by the right that like now he doesn't know where to even have like any kind of political home or base or friends.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the core of the first they came for the communists quote, right? Like,
right.
You're a big gay loser and nobody wants you anymore because you turned on your own people, Milo.
Yeah, and like we're not taking the queers aren't taking you back, bud. Like we're not taking you back, not ever. You've done way too many, way too many fucked up things. But it is, like I say, it's funny to watch the meltdowns and to see this person have to realize in real time that, like, yeah, that thing we always say about first they came for these people, it's fucking true. Like, you think that you're going to be a grand exception. And yes, if the fascist project works out and like fascism takes hold, there will be one or two grand exceptions who get to live in the ivory tower of fascism, even though they are black or gay or whatever.
Right.
But they are going to be very small exceptions. And if you step even, here's the thing, to maintain that, you cannot step out of line even slightly. And that's the really hard truth that these people that sell themselves out to the fascist project tend to learn, is that
Right.
you will not be protected the second that you say, I have a view that's slightly outside of what the rest of y'all think.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they are the definition of eating their own. And I mean, to be fair, the left does this too. I don't think that's exclusive to the right.
No.
But if you're on the left and it happens to you, you can always break to the right. If you're on the right and it happens to you, you just don't have anywhere to go anymore. Because leftists don't really take people back. It's not like a thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on why they were thrown out.
Right.
Right? Like, because if somebody was thrown out of the left, I mean, I can think of people that I know personally that were at one time sort of kicked out of the left, but not because of like serious reasons, but just because they weren't being woke enough to really participate or things like that, you know?
Yeah, that's different, I think, though.
And those people are sometimes allowed back. And I think that, like, you know, we don't entirely eat our own. Here's what I would say is that
to be clear, I meant like if you go, there's like a line where you cross it and you
yes,
back. That's what I meant. I don't mean like, you know, in the faux pas sense or the like, you know, Baptiste sense. I mean like.
Well, but the problem is the faux pas sense to some people that is permanently cancelable to certain, especially very online leftists. So it's like, it's complicated in that regard.
Well, I'm sure that's to an extent why people aren't courting us more. Like we're demanding and we're fickle. And I can understand why a person might say, you know what, fuck it. Like they'll come or they won't.
I think any ideology that feels that it needs to protect its purity tends to end up with a bit of an eats its own attitude.
Yeah.
And I understand how we got here as the left in terms of like we have been sort of like marginalized and hunted and betrayed so many times in different situations, whether it's like the Red Scare here in America or, you know, anything else that's similar. But like there have been plenty of examples of this sort of thing happening to leftists.
Right.
And so I think that raises this natural idea that that's why we have to protect the purity. But it would be a lot better if we could just move on past that kind of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we can't win unless we just use vulnerability as our strength.
Yes, I agree with that.
So let's check on this vote again really quickly because it has changed now.
Oh boy.
Impeachment now looking likely in the most recent total. There's not much to say, but I'm just going to keep popping this on screen because I know people want to know. I kind of want to know. So I get it.
Those 187 days are going to keep me up at night, though. You know, the thing is, no matter what happens here, we are still facing most of the same problems, right? It's like the same thing like when Biden won the election. We're still facing most of the same problems.
Yeah.
Because those people are still going to be in Congress tomorrow, even if Trump's not president anymore. You know, Crawley is still going to be in office tomorrow. You know, Madison Cawthorn is still going to be in office tomorrow. Tom Cotton is still going to be in office tomorrow. Like these people are still going to have the same beliefs, be working for the same people, and still be in office tomorrow.
I know some people are going to think that this is a barb. I swear it is not. But if y'all are out there on the internet looking for lists of people to get out of office, this is a compelling one, folks. And so is the list of people that voted not to certify the election results. That's another really compelling list of people to get out of office. And I think for a lot of people on the left, it's become a little sexier to think about primarying centrist Democrats than to think about getting Republicans out. Let's stop being that way. like if we can get a Republican out that is someone who refused to certify election results, if you think you've got a district, if you've got a district that's like R+4 and you know that a lot of people in your district don't like Trump, that is in some ways a more exciting opportunity than primarying a centrist or corporate Democrat. Now, should we be doing both? Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, if you're looking for lists of people to get out of office because they are untrustworthy, holy shit, do we have some lists now?
And how? I also really want to talk about, and it's kind of related to this, just the absolutely maddening denial so many people are in about how bad the situation already is. You know, like if you follow me on Twitter, you saw me tweeting about it for the last, I don't know, 6 months or so. But, you know, it's like even right now, people are saying like, oh, it's not technically a coup, it's a coup attempt. And even then, like, we can't really say for sure it was a coup attempt. I'm like, are you kidding me? They said it was a coup attempt. Like, they said it themselves. They are saying it right now. They are online where it is being recorded saying this. How can you just like ignore it? And
it kind of feels like the same people that wouldn't take Donald Trump seriously because he doesn't speak nice, right?
Yeah,
like it's like the same kind of mentality where it's like these people looked and acted like idiots, so it can't be a coup. No, not every coup attempt has to be good.
Well, and not just that, right? But like, there is no reason evil has to be smart or clever. In fact, most evil is really stupid. Most evil is laziness and a complete absence of intellectual curiosity. Most evil is banal. And the fact that people are waiting for some like clever madman to come up and like actually have a better plan before they do something is ridiculous, because you don't need to be smart. You just need to be good at talking to people in a way that they can hear you and speaking to the things they care about. And
yeah,
so,
I mean,
like, it's so
also you just have to hold the reins of power, and they do. Like, it doesn't even necessarily matter if their rhetoric is good or things like that. The point is that the people that we're looking at in this situation literally hold the reins of power.
I mean, when you're speaking to people's interests, money is easily the most broadest one. Like, you can throw money at pretty much anything and it'll be better. Like, and if you don't have money, then you got to be speaking to people's interests in other ways, you know?
So just because this fascism project that we have in America is like weird and has a beer gut and, you know, has Cheeto stains on its pants, doesn't make it something that we suddenly just write off.
Right.
And way too many people online are like, oh, it's not serious enough to take seriously. These people have the ability to bring harm to marginalized folks, and they're doing it all the time. It's not like this is disconnected from the people running people over at protests and things of that nature.
Right.
So, like, it just frustrates me for people to think that somehow, because this is like a greasy, sweaty coup without like a ton of on the ground support, that it's not enough.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the thing that I am most concerned about here is the long-term repercussions, you know, because even right now, like, I was just reading this article, I'm trying to remember if it was in Huffington Post. I think it was. I'm double checking. Yeah, so it was in Huffington Post, and I was reading this article just sort of as a write-up of like what we know about the coup, what happened, and what everybody has to say about it. And every single aspect of what's happening next is independently terrifying, right? Because we know that there are plans for people to literally encircle the Capitol with guns and hold it siege, while also holding the White House and defending it, and then going for the Supreme Court and holding that hostage as well, right? So we know that there's a group of people who are fully, openly planning an armed insurrection on the 20th, and they intend to kill everyone who disagrees with them, right?
And
that's the first terrifying thing.
The less seriously we take it, the more likely this stuff is to get worse.
Yes, exactly. And the next terrifying thing about this is we know that right-wing paramilitary forces exist. And we know they're working in conjunction with both elected officials and law enforcement to make this happen. So there is this sort of specter in the Capitol building right now where people like AOC are saying they don't know if they can even talk to their colleagues about this because they're not sure who's in on it, right? We've been seeing all day long when people were entering this building, massive tantrums being thrown because they didn't want them to bring guns in, right? And we are at this point now where even though there is like a reasonable, realistic expectation that these elected officials are going to start shooting each other on the floor of the Senate, they're still throwing tantrums about whether they can bring their guns with them.
And now that whole
maddening.
we don't know who's in on it thing, this is something that like a lot of people on the left have been trying to talk about and warn y'all about, and like I think people are starting to see it more now, but like, my God, we got to realize that there are enemies out there that are like serious proponents of fascism who want the rest of us to suffer and die. Okay? Like, we got to realize that those people are out there and that they have infiltrated every level of the government. Okay? Like, not just a little bit, but a lot. And I'm really glad. If I'm going to be happy for anything AOC has done in her entire time in office, I'm really glad that she spoke up honestly about this, because this is something that people need to hear and understand. It's really like, it's fucking serious at this point. It's really fucking serious. And like, I had a conversation with some friends a few days ago, where, they were talking about, oh, maybe it's good that the Capitol's getting locked down from now till inauguration. And I was like, yeah, except we don't know who's on our side.
Yeah,
we don't know if this is giving power to help prevent the next problem or if it's giving power to the next problem. We don't know.
Yes, absolutely. And that was actually a third point I was going to make, right? We are seeing this dramatic increase in military presence at the Capitol right now, but that's not like gonna go down because terrorist activity on the right is not gonna go down. So what we can expect is this razor wire outside of the Capitol is gonna be normal now. You know, these metal detectors at the entrance of the Capitol building are going to be normal now. We're going to just accept this dramatic increase in the militarization of our actual like government spaces, and those becoming more closed door and more alienated from the people that are voting for them. And the more they respond by ratcheting up security, the longer and harder it's going to be for us to actually get rid of that level of militarization of the police. You know, and that's just this massive thing that's going to set us back, you know, if not years, or if not decades, years, in terms of just the broader liberation and abolition movement. This is, it's really impossible to overstate how much of a setback this is for the left, just by virtue of the centrists seeing us as the same.
And the thing is that the police, like, this whole situation with like funding the police more, this is like, I don't tend to think that all politics is theater, but if I was going to be convinced, moments like this definitely push me in that direction. Because I was tweeting a year ago, Joe Biden is going to be the scan your eye to get in any government building president. Like he is going to be the facial recognition everywhere president. Like, tweeting stuff about this. And now here it is. He's on his way into office. And what does he have? The perfect excuse to do everything that I feared Joe Biden would ever do as a shitty president. And we know how this goes because we've all lived through 9/11. And we've all lived through the TSA becoming a thing. So, like, we know where this goes from here. And it's not good. And we know where this show goes from here, which is a 60-second break. and then we'll see what's going on with the impeachment vote.
What? And
What?
also, when we get back, I want to talk about what we can do from here, because I hate hemming and hawing about how bad things are without actually giving people actionable advice. So a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Assuming there's a 60 seconds from now, we'll see you then.
All right, let's check on those votes. You know you want to see it. You know it.
How exciting.
Wow. Okay. So impeachment's looking more likely than ever.
Yeah.
Good. Cool.
I mean,
Whatever. So what do we do now, Rachel?
Right. So I'm about to say a thing that's going to make a lot of our more leftist listeners, watchers, viewers, friends, family probably kind of mad.
That's okay. I'll make them happy when it's my turn.
All right, cool. So first and foremost, we are 12 years away at a minimum from doing the socialist revolution we're trying to do. And right now, these people are 12 months at a maximum away from doing it. We don't have time. We have to play nice. We have to figure out how we can work with the centrists and the Democrats to make sure that this doesn't happen, to make sure that this doesn't turn into incredible amounts of police militarization, just like after Occupy, and to make sure that they understand that we are willing to play ball, because if we don't, we are going to lose and we are going to end up with an actual fascist dictatorship. Full stop. I am dead ass serious about this. You know how I feel about Democrats. You know I hate everything about liberalism, and I am telling you, if we don't do this, we lose. Flatly.
Well, I don't know if I agree that it's as dire as that, but I do think that Rachel has a strong point in terms of, like, if the fascist project is allowed to take hold, it is going to set back our work. I would even argue that we might be closer to our goals even than 12 years, but only if the fascist project doesn't set us back. Like, we would have to not have that happen. And this is, I know this probably sounds like some pro-Biden shit. It's not, okay? Because here's what else we need to do. We need to fucking not be doing just electoralism. We need to get into a mode of organizing that is not based on this is the only route that we have out of here, okay? Mm-hmm. Sometimes electoralism helps. I personally don't believe it can ever deliver us our ideal leftist government. And so we have got to start looking at our other options to some extent. I am not talking necessarily about some kind of full-scale violent revolution or something like that. But what I am talking about is building mutual power structures. Mm-hmm. It's doing mutual aid and, maybe doing some stuff this year if you've never done it before, like joining the Socialist Rifle Organization, looking into community gardening, doing things like that, because we can't ensure that the fascists aren't going to start going from neighborhood to neighborhood at some point and making trouble.
Kristallnacht happened, y'all. That's a thing.
And before that happened,
again.
Before that happened, there was plenty of thugs roaming around making trouble for people. Kristallnacht happened because the thugs had already been allowed to operate with impunity for a while.
I know it's here.
Well, I mean, that's where we're headed in a lot of ways. So
yeah. I also think it is a common misconception that you can tell when a revolution is about to happen, right? You can recognize when there are conditions where it's likely to happen, but a revolution is like a tornado. You know, it is something massive and complicated, and we can predict certain aspects of it, and we can infer that it is more or less likely to happen based on certain contexts, but there is really no way to know with 100% certainty what's going to happen. And because of that, a lot of people just assume it's not going to happen until it already did. They only seem inevitable in retrospect. So in the meantime, what we need to be doing is we need to be getting involved no matter where that is, really. If you want to go work with the Democratic Party, go work with the Democratic Party. It is better than nothing. You know, and once you start organizing, you will get to know more organizers. Even if you're just joining an organization to practice your rifle skills, right? Even if you join Socialist Rifle Association, at least then you will be interacting with socialists in your community on a regular basis, among them almost certainly people who are organizing. I am not accepting any reason for not getting involved this year. I understand that there are disabilities out there, but you can work around them. You can do other things, right? I have disabilities. I get it. I do the things I can do. There is no excuse for doing nothing this year, flatly. There is none.
Listen, because it really doesn't have to be that much. We don't all have to bust our ass or organizing. We all have to make ourselves available to the organizing movement. There's a big difference, okay? So, like, I mean, I also am chronically ill. I cannot do as much, like, active in-person organizing as I used to for a lot of reasons, even before the pandemic. But with the pandemic especially, I'm nervous. So I get it, but the most important thing is that you make yourself available to people through whatever structures that feels best for your community and the people that you know. So if all you did was say, yes, put me on your lists, that's a step. And if you occasionally respond when that list asks for something that you can help with, that's within your ability and means, then you've really done something. And that's it. That's all you had to do. Make yourself available, and occasionally when you're the one whose hand is ready to reach out to help, you do it. And then when it's not, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a natural leader, right? Natural leaders recognize ourselves because people follow us, right? And you can tell when somebody's looking to you for direction, right? If you're one of those people, use that. If you're not one of those people, find one. Like, you can do things. You have this power, and if we actually pull together, if we actually create the kind of left unity that people keep talking about, if we actually just sort of mutually understand that we are going to have to work together on this project and agree to just ignore certain ways we disagree for a while, if we don't do that, we lose. But if we do, we could double the amount, or have the amount of time it takes for us to actually achieve these goals, right? If we can actually seriously create that momentum and allow it to build with sort of that exponential growth that comes from everybody being involved and putting their back into it, you know, metaphorically speaking, then we can actually do it, right? I would say, like, if we do that, 6 years, right? And that's probably enough time. We can probably, in 6 years, still more or less save this. But we have to actually do it. Like, there's do or die, you know? It is that moment.
Let me talk about one, even for some people, even simpler way that you can make a difference, which is to just educate yourself and then spread it.
Yes.
If you spread the knowledge that you have to other people, help get them informed, that's really powerful. A lot of things do change this way through literally just word of mouth, handshake, conversations with friends and family, where people just sit down and say, hey, you might want to learn about this. Just the other day, I was talking with my grandmother, and she started in about how some, you know, defund the police isn't really the right tactic, you know? And it was typical kind of just that liberal, like, she's not even against anything that we're against, really. But she's just worried about these like nebulous things that she's been told to worry about. And I could have let it slide, and I didn't. And sometimes you just have to make that choice to have those conversations with people. And it was a little bit of an awkward conversation, but it was ultimately productive in that case. Sometimes it's not. I'm not gonna glamorize it like that every time that you talk to some weirdo family member, some bizarre uncle, that it's always going to be effective or whatever. But like, you can change the way that your friends and family think. This is what has changed queer acceptance in this country primarily. It has come through the means of people coming out in mass. And just saying, we're here, I'm your cousin, I'm your neighbor, I'm your coworker, and you like me. I'm a person that you get along with. And that's what queers are. They're people that you know. Like that was how we taught people, and we need to do the same thing with socialism. That's what socialists are. They're people that you know. And Rachel, you're muted, by the way. I see you saying yes, but
I'm saying yes a whole bunch. Sorry, my child was yelling because my neighbor's dog got out of the gate again, which he does about 3 times a week. So here we are. Yeah. The live recording, folks. Yeah. One of the things I really want to see also is for us to start creating spaces where, people are interacting with leftists on neutral ground. And not just coming out to our families, but building things with people who are in the center. And we're going to have to invite them in, and we're going to have to try and figure out how to get them to show up to our things. And it's going to take us being sweet and kissing some asses that don't deserve it, right? But that is the fastest way to do this, and I am telling you, we don't have time. We don't have time to be uncompromising in our principles. We don't have time to get every single person to agree with us before we act. We don't have time.
This is what left unity is really about to be. It's not about people who basically agreed but read different books reaching across some kind of minimally existent aisle. Right. It's about getting people on board with the idea of leftism and building a movement that we can all relatively agree upon, even if it's not something that everyone fully understands all the theory behind or agrees with every part of, etc. And that's where also the combination of left, traditional class conscious left theory and IDPOL, I think, is so important, because the most important thing in building a unified left is that we don't leave anybody behind. We can disagree on other aspects. We can't disagree on human lives.
Right. Right.
So we can't have a left movement that's going to leave out Black folks or queer folks or other people of color or other, marginalized people. It has to be inclusive enough.
Well, and there are queer folks with problematic opinions. There are Black folks with problematic opinions. There are women with problematic opinions. No matter what, there are going to be people that have problematic opinions who still need to be on our team, and we're going to have to figure out how to be patient. We're going to have to figure out how to, like Kennedy was saying, make ourselves just somebody you know, right? Whatever weird things exist about you or whatever, marginalized identities you have, we're going to have. Yeah, I mean, that's true. We're going to have to, right? We need to toughen up a bit. We need to stop treating everything like a safe space and start treating it like a brave space, And those are 2 different things.
And we can have both.
This is not a safe space ever. It has never been. It never will be. But it is a brave space, right? Where we approach things with compassion and earnesty, and accept that sometimes people are going to say things that hurt our feelings. And it's going to happen.
We can have safe spaces too. It just can't necessarily be everywhere. Yeah. And just because we accept the idea that not everything can be a safe space means that it's okay that some spaces are wildly toxic.
Yeah.
There's nuance.
It's not good to be anti-woke either. Those people are insufferable. They need to get their shit together. It's all of these things, right? We are a broad spectrum of identities across, you know, so many different circumstances and conditions and locations. Like, we have to really widen our lens for what a good leftist looks like.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So, I just want to say the reason I flashed C-SPAN back on the screen for a second earlier is because the House did vote to impeach Trump for the second time, because they actually voted to impeach him earlier today as well. I think these articles might be slightly stronger, although I don't want to get super into that today. Maybe I'll come back later and talk about that, but I probably won't. Because that's wonk shit, you know?
I mean, I think it's worth mentioning, like, what's going on there, right? Because this is going to have a huge impact on how far we get thrown back here. You know, this is a bomb that went off when people broke into the Capitol building for the first time in like 100 years. 200 years? Was it 1812?
You know, honestly, I want to take a step back. I think the real bomb going off is the very literal bomb that went off in Nashville. And I want to talk about that for a second, because we had a domestic terrorist attack a week or so before this, clearly with some ties to the movement and ideas that led to the Capitol Hill shit. And I thought one of the most interesting things that I read about this was that the FBI said they had no credible leads on this attack. No credible leads. So what does that mean? It means that they probably did know something, because otherwise they would deny all knowledge, most likely. But whenever a law enforcement agency says they had no credible leads on a crime before it happened, it meant that they did hear something and they didn't take it seriously. And why did they take it seriously or not? Honestly, doesn't even matter. Fuck it. I don't care. Look, I'll give the FBI a pass for this one. What I won't give them a pass for is somehow not linking that up with the attempted insurrection of our government.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
if you looked at that situation and said, wow, we did not take this Q fucking Trumper conspiracy shit seriously enough, but after the Nashville bombing, we are going to reorient our priorities, then you wouldn't have let this Capitol Hill shit fucking happen. Like, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. I mean, this sort of ties back into what we were talking about earlier, right? There is no reason that immense evil cannot be foolish or buffoonish or downright stupid. These are not mutually exclusive. They aren't, and we need to start taking the dumb ones seriously, because a dumb person with a gun still has a gun, right? Like, it's the gun that makes them dangerous, not their fierce wit.
Yeah. Well,
you only need a couple people who are able to, like, come up with a plan if you have a bazillion people with guns.
I just want to say one more thing, not related to anything at all, but I've had C-SPAN open this entire time, and they're at their point now. They're taking calls from the audience. We ought to just watch C-SPAN and try to call them and just call that a stream one day.
You know? Why not?
It'll be funny. I mean,
are we gonna prank call them those? Like, here's the question.
No, I think we should, like, legit leftists call them.
I still feel like we would have to misdirect on what we were gonna say on air.
We'd have to be funny still.
Well, but I mean, like, also, I think if we said, like, hey, we want to say leftist shit, they would just be like, oh gosh, I can't hear.
No, you don't make it that obvious.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like we'd have to misdirect them a bit.
Yeah, gotta
Trojan horse our intentions.
Let's do one more quick thing before we wrap this up.
What are we gonna do?
We're just gonna look at this photo.
Yeah. Man.
This has to be funny to me because we spend so much money on the military. We spend so much money on the military. Like, just unreasonable amounts of money. And somehow there's no money for like cots. Or something.
I mean,
They just
I don't know.
they just let they summon all these fucking, you know, different types of law enforcement and soldiers and National Guard to the Capitol, and they're just fucking laying around in buildings, sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
There's something about the way these people are being treated so inhumanely in this context of grandiose pillars and velvet ropes.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think it's kind of a perfect microcosm of the problem in the United States, right? Because we have this objectively opulent surrounding, you know, there's marble everywhere, it's beautiful, the velvet ropes are out, like you said. You know, it is this gilded place where, you know, wondrous things are supposed to happen. It's like Walk Disney World. And then we have it just literally filled to the brim with soldiers with lots of guns, and also they're sleeping on the floor because nobody thought to buy cots. And it's like this just perfect, exact distillation of the kind of attitude the ruling class has towards the rest of us.
Also, doesn't it just freakily make the whole thing feel even more war zone like? I mean, this is what they do in a war zone. They just do whatever they have to, you know?
Yeah.
But like this is at home when theoretically like the government could just be making an agreement with Airbnb, who I talked about earlier, who canceled all of its fucking reservations up through Inauguration Day, right? Like, could be working out some kind of agreement with them or something. Like, like to just have like, I mean, do you need all of these people here all the time too? Like, what is even the idea? Can't some of them leave for a few hours and go sleep in a bed? What? It's just, you've gone from no response to over response, and it's just the trappings of it, the aesthetics of it are just so grim and bizarre.
I mean, this is what collapse looks like, right? Collapse is not this, you know, massive cinematographic thing. Collapse doesn't happen with, you know, dramatic angles and a soaring orchestral score. Collapse happens slowly over days and weeks and months and years and decades, until suddenly you look at it and you say, how did we get here, right? This is what collapse looks like. It is boring, uneventful days punctuated by horrific atrocity, by violence, by death, right? That's what collapse looks like. We're here. We've been here. And that's why it's time for us to start really getting our asses in gear. You know, if you're doing electoral politics, learn how to play nice with Democrats. If you are doing mutual aid, figure out how to get coordinated with the people who aren't. You know, we have to start just actively recruiting all of the time, and we need to have pipelines for people to get them involved. I think we need to build some infrastructure there, right? So like, I know I am working with some people on an app, like specifically for this purpose, just to help organizations and, you know, people who are trying to figure out how to get involved, to get in touch with organizations and with each other. And the truth is, we have to do this because we need to be pushing on all fronts. It can't be about who has the biggest, you know, group or organization right now. It has to be about all of us working together, however we can, in whatever capacity we can, pushing as hard as we can. You know, we need people for all of the things. We need people to make, you know, messaging and, you know, work against propaganda against us, right? We need people who are pushing back against police militarization. You know, we need to have people who are pushing for labor rights. We need people who are pushing for housing rights. We need people who are pushing for reparations. We need all of it. All of these things need to be happening. What needs to change, though, is that we need to be doing them in a coordinated way.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching, everybody.
Love to give y'all, you know, all of these like blossoming visions of better futures, but frankly, we're on the edge, you know, and I feel like if I were to say like, oh, it's going to be fine, I would be doing everybody watching this and also everybody who isn't a disservice, you know?
Yeah.
It's not. Things aren't fine right now. They haven't been.
Patreon.com/notsafe, YouTube.com/notsafemedia.
Yes.
Bye.
Money helps.